Okay, that's the end of our three speeches. We now have an opportunity to take some questions from the floor. I think we have some...
Two will tackle the issues of economics, finance, and inequality. At our time, it is impossible to talk about inequality without really talking about finance. In the last 3 decades, financial interests have had a tremendous effect on real economic outcomes. And this is what the political economy literature calls financialization. The notion of financialization covers a wide range of phenomena: the deregulation of the financial sector and the creation of new financial instruments, the development of originate and redistribute model of banking, the emergence of institutional investors as major players in the financial markets, the boom and bust cycles that come with that in asset markets and in the real economy, a massive change in the behavior of corporations in corporate governance towards shareholder value orientation in non-financial businesses, and a spectacular rise of incomes in the financial sector as well as in financial investments. That went along with other developments that we call, in general, the financialization of everyday life that involves, among other things, of course, the increase in household debt, a topic very well known here in Ireland. All these aspects of financialization have had unforeseen effects on income distribution and wealth inequality. And furthermore, the rise in inequality in both income distribution and wealth concentration has also prepared a vicious ground for risky financial practices in turn. A growing amount of empirical literature in the tradition of political economy has recently shown that financialization indeed has been one of the major causes of the rise in income inequality, in particular when we look at the distribution of income between labor, between wage income versus the income of capital, the profit income. Why is that? An increased role of financial activity since the 1980s has had significant effects on the bargaining position of labor vis-à-vis capital. Non-financial firms have increased their fallback options in terms of their choice between geographic locations, but also in terms of their choice between investment in financial assets versus real assets. And that has led to a tremendous rise in the bargaining power of capital vis-à-vis labor. It has also led to the orientation towards shareholder value and hence prioritize shareholders' demands relative to workers. In particular, the strategies of the private equity funds that rose in that era have been detrimental to labor's bargaining power and employment. The same process has been, of course, detrimental for other macroeconomic outcomes, in particular investments. Hence, growth has stagnated or has been built on shaky foundations, such as debt-led consumption growth here in Ireland and elsewhere in the periphery of Europe, coupled with other shaky foundations, such as export-led growth in the core countries of Europe. And it has also been detrimental for job creation. Hence, it is impossible today to talk about policies to reverse that direction, to suggest a more egalitarian development path, unless we start talking about finance and re-regulating finance. This is what our panel today will be addressing. I'm Özlem Onaran. I'm Professor of Workforce and Economic Development Policy at the University of Greenwich. We have a very distinguished panel of 5 speakers who are all experts in their field related to the aspects of inequality and finance and different dimensions of that. We will start with Gary Dymski at the far end of the table. Gary Dymski is a professor in economics and chair in applied economics at the Leeds University Business School since 2012. We are very lucky to have him relocated from the US, where he had been at the University of California, Riverside for the previous 21 years. Gary's current research focuses on the causes and consequences of the subprime and Eurozone crisis, Power in Finance, Shadow Banking and Financial Regulation. And his work has been informed and inspired by theories of Keynes, Kalecki, Commons, Minsky, and Polanyi. He has recently co-edited a very influential book titled The Crisis of 2008 and the Future of Capitalism. And together with another colleague at the Leeds University Business School with Nina Kaltenbrunner, he has been working on a project on inequality and finance for the Foundation of European Progressive Studies. Before I give the floor to Gary, let me introduce you also to the rest of our speakers. We will then have Eckhart Hein following Gary. Eckhart is professor of economics at the Berlin School of Economics and Law. His research focuses on financial systems, distribution and growth, European economic policies, post-Keynesian macroeconomics, among others. He is the author and co-editor of more than 25 books. I can't now list all of them here, along with numerous articles in academic journals. His latest book is The Macroeconomics of Finance-Dominated Capitalism and Its Crisis. And we are all looking forward to his new forthcoming book on distribution and growth after Keynes, a post-Keynesian guide. Next, we will have Eliza Brownstein. Eliza is associate professor in the Department of Economics at Colorado State University. She's traveled the longest distance today for us from the US. She uses a feminist lens to analyze macroeconomic and international economic processes. She focuses on economic development, growth, and gender equality. She is widely published in academic journals as well as in policy venues, and she has numerous consultancy projects for international institutions, including the ILO, among others. Next, we have Diane Parents. Diane is professor of economic geography and gender studies, as well as the director of Gender Institute at the London School of Economics. She's also a member of the Women's Budget Group. Her research examines broadly the interplay between economic transformation and everyday life, with a focus on economic and gender inequalities in a global context. She is author of the book Globalization and Social Change, and she has recently co-authored a new book titled Gender, Migration and Domestic Work, Masculinities, Male Labor and Fathering in the UK and USA. And her current work is focused on the gender dimension of inequality in the age of austerity. Last but not least, we will have Tom Mcdonald from here, Dublin. Dr. Tom Mcdonald is macroeconomist at the Nevin Economic Research Institute. His work mainly focuses on fiscal policy, Eurozone policy, and banking policy. Tom has been also teaching at various universities in Ireland, and recently he has been teaching political economy at NUI Mammoth. And he is a former policy analyst at TASC, and he's also currently a member of TASC Economists Network. I look forward to a very lively debate with lots of food for thought. And without further ado, please, Gary, let's hear from your recent project results and 10 policy proposals to break the nexus between finance and inequality.
I'd like to begin by thanking TASC and FEPS for the opportunity to have us here to share some ideas. And I want to emphasize as well that the paper I'm going to bring you is first done with my collaborator and colleague at the Leeds University Business School, Nina Kaltenbrunner. And secondly, that the paper copies of that paper have been distributed. So there are more available on the website if you would like to take a look at what are essentially ideas in motion. And in that respect, let me start by basically sharing with you that, we're going to be listening with great interest today to Thomas Piketty. and he has put on the agenda a word that's been, and a concept that's been hiding in plain sight: inequality, and the unfairness, and the questions of what to do about that as a tendency in the economic system that we have. And in a sense, what Nina and I are doing in this work is we're bringing another question that's hiding in plain sight to the fore, and thinking about the policy implications. And that is, what is the purpose of the banking system? There's been such a lot of talk about the need to save banks and all of that, and Ireland has been at the forefront of these kind of discussions and efforts. But the reality is that we've stopped really thinking about what we're getting from the banks. What I'm going to do today is to, first of all, talk about the links between inequality and finance very quickly, because they're very strong. The connection between what Piketty's going to talk about and myself are right there. Secondly, I'm going to make an argument that you're going to see in parts 3 and 4 about what we call this bifurcation point, the fact that nations that are inside the Eurozone really are facing a contradiction in the way that banking is regulated and organized that has to be resolved, in our view, only in one way, given what we call here the feasible Europe. And then finally, we're going to get to the policy proposals. Now, first, inequality and finance. I've identified 5 ways in which these things are interrelated. First is that you have super leveraged speculation, which enriches the 1%. And so at the inner core of the financial system now is this speculation and this zero-sum gaming that is involved among people trading, combined with fee-taking from those who ante into the system. Now, that fragilizes some of the financial institutions that are the most adept and the largest at that, what we call megabanks. Secondly, when these systematically important institutions fail, these megabanks, shadow banks, and the large bank holding companies, then they impose costs on the rest of society, and that cost is distributed disproportionately to those on the bottom.